The vault smelled like lightning and dust. Even before the lights came on, Kyle could feel the hum in the air, the kind that made the hair on your arms stand straight. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing faintly with dull silver veins of energy that ran like roots through the stone. This was the vault of Erindra, deep under the alien capital's mountain spire, sealed away for nearly 10 millennia. And tonight, somehow, a human had talked his way in. He shouldn't have been there. Not really. Kel wasn't a soldier or a noble or even an official scientist. He was an engineer, a systems tech from the joint human Elendari research team sent to restore ancient technology after the treaty between their species. But curiosity had a way of dragging him into places his clearance couldn't justify, especially when Arya was involved. She stood ahead of him now, her tall, willowy frame draped in the traditional robes of the Elendari historians. Her silver skin reflected the vault's ghostly glow, and her hair shimmered with a faint halo of pale blue biolight. Every movement she made was precise, graceful, almost ritualistic. She turned back toward him with a faint smirk. "You're staring again, Kyle," he coughed awkwardly. "Just admiring the craftsmanship." Arya's eyes, luminous and multifaceted like crystal, narrowed in amusement. "Craftsmanship? You humans use that word for everything. These vaults weren't built. They were grown." "Right," Kyle said, rubbing the back of his neck. "So they're organic structures." "In a way," she said, walking deeper inside. "They respond to lineage and memory. Only my bloodline can open the inner chamber. Which means," she smiled slightly, "you'd better not touch anything." Kyle grinned. "Wouldn't dream of it." The vault door closed behind them with a low, harmonic boom. The temperature dropped. The air tasted faintly of ozone. Arya approached the central pedestal, a crystalline dais surrounded by concentric rings etched with alien glyphs. She placed her palm on the surface, and the entire room came alive. Light spiraled up from the floor in elegant patterns, forming holographic projections of constellations long since forgotten. In the middle of it all, a pod began to rise, smooth, dark metal gleaming with threads of gold. "The armor!" Kale took an involuntary step forward. It was like nothing he had ever seen. Every human record described Elendari craftsmanship as delicate, ornamental, but this was raw power shaped into form. The plating looked fluid, like molten obsidian frozen mid-flow. Its contours were perfectly symmetrical, yet each line pulsed with a faint internal rhythm. "That's it?" he asked softly. Arya nodded, her expression unreadable. "The armor of Isarath. My ancestor wore it during the last war of the Elendari Dominion. When she fell, they sealed it here. It has been dormant ever since." Kyle couldn't take his eyes off it. "And you're just allowed to show me this?" "Not exactly," Arya admitted, glancing at him sideways. "That's why you're going to forget everything you see tonight." He grinned. "Oh, sure, completely. Memory wiped." She chuckled, a sound like wind through crystal. "Humans." Always joking, Kale crouched closer to the armor, the light from its core reflecting in his brown eyes. "So what's it made of? Some kind of nanite lattice? Or bioconductive alloy?" Arya didn't answer. Her gaze lingered on the armor, reverent, almost fearful. "It's made from the remains of a dying star," she said softly. "Forged in the void between worlds. They say it carries the memory of every battle it ever fought, and that it only awakens for the blood of Isarath herself." "Wow," Kyle murmured. "That's poetic." "It's a warning," she said. "Even among my people, no one dares touch it. The last historian who tried claimed it whispered to him. He was found 3 days later, staring into the sun." Kyle forced a laugh, but unease prickled his spine. "So haunted armor." "Got it." She gave him a mock glare. "I'm serious, Kale. It's not a relic. It's alive." Dormant but aware, he raised both hands. "All right, I'll keep my hands to myself." But curiosity was a funny thing. While Arya began scanning the inscriptions for her report, Kyle circled the pedestal. He couldn't help himself. The armor seemed to breathe, its plates expanding and contracting with a faint hiss, as though exhaling air from another dimension. There were runes etched along the edges, each glowing faintly when he got close. He extended his hand, stopping just inches from the surface. The air buzzed against his skin. "Kyle," Arya said without turning. "Don't," he smiled sheepishly. "Relax, I'm not touching it," but the armor wanted to be touched. He could feel it, pulling faintly like gravity bending toward him. Against all logic and good judgment, he let his fingertips brush the edge of a gauntlet. A soft chime filled the air. Arya spun. "What did you—" The gauntlet unfurled like petals awakening to sunlight, and before Kyle could react, it latched onto his arm. The material flowed over his skin, cool and weightless, locking into place with a magnetic click. The energy pulse was immediate and violent. Kyle staggered back, gasping. I can't." Arya darted forward, trying to pry it off.
"You fool!"
"It's binding." The armor spread across his body in seconds, crawling like liquid light. His heart hammered. Every nerve burned. The runes ignited in blinding gold, filling the vault with an otherworldly roar. "Take it off!" he shouted. "Arya, take it off!" "I can't," she yelled, shielding her face from the light. "It's choosing you!" The last piece, an obsidian chestplate, snapped into place. Kyle fell to his knees, the world around him spinning. Through the agony, a voice echoed in his head, female commanding ancient. "Who dares wear the armor of Isarath?" Kyle froze. He wasn't imagining it. The voice wasn't coming from outside. It was inside his skull, vibrating through his bones. "Like, I didn't mean to," he stammered aloud. "It was an accident." Arya's eyes widened. "She's awake?" "A human." The voice dripped with disbelief. "How far my bloodline has fallen." Kyle clutched his head. "I don't understand." "You carry echoes of the first flame," the voice said. "You are not Elendari, yet the fire stirs within you. Strange. Perhaps the stars are not yet done with this world." The air around him rippled. Every light in the vault flickered in sync with his heartbeat. Energy arced from the floor to the ceiling, splitting stone, shaking dust from ancient glyphs. Ishria shouted over the noise, "Kyle, listen to me! The armor's reading your genetic memory. Something in your DNA is resonating with it." He looked up, eyes blazing gold. "What does that mean?" "It means you're awakening something that shouldn't exist." Before he could reply, the entire vault shifted. The walls lit up with cascading symbols, and the floor opened beneath them, revealing a massive circular platform descending into darkness. The armor on Kale's body flared brighter, its runes syncing with the vault's design, as if the two were communicating. Arya grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "Stop it. You're activating the vault." "I'm not doing anything." The platform halted with a deep, resonant boom. A colossal statue stood before them. An armored figure, identical to Kyle now, carved into the rock. The statue's eyes began to glow, and for a terrifying moment it felt like it was looking right at him. Then the voice spoke again, softer this time, almost gentle. "The heir of two worlds." The flame awakens. Kyle's vision blurred. He could feel something surging inside him, a power he didn't understand, an ancient heat burning in his blood. His senses expanded outward, beyond the vault, beyond the planet itself. For a moment he saw galaxies like drifting embers. Then everything went black. When Kale opened his eyes again, he was lying on the cold metal floor. Arya knelt beside him, her face pale, her hands trembling as she touched his shoulder. "Kyle," she whispered. "Can you hear me?" He groaned, forcing himself upright. The armor was still there, but its glow had dimmed to a faint ember. His pulse echoed through it, perfectly synchronized. "I think I'm okay," he said. "Mostly." Arya stared at him, disbelief and something like fear in her eyes. "You shouldn't be alive. The last Elendari who tried to wear that armor died instantly. And you've bonded with it." He flexed his fingers, the armor responding like living tissue. "Feels natural." She rose, backing away slightly. "Kale, you just woke a relic that could level cities. If the Elendari Council finds out, if anyone finds out." A sudden tremor shook the vault. Dust fell from the ceiling. Arya froze. Kyle looked up, his chestplate glowing faintly again. "What now?" Arya's gaze darted toward the vault door, where streaks of red light crawled across the seams. "We're not alone," she whispered. "Who's coming?" She swallowed hard. The ones who swore never to let the armor wake again. The runes on the walls flickered faster, responding to something outside. Cale could feel the armor's hum grow louder in his bones. Whatever waited beyond that door was powerful, and it knew exactly what had just been unleashed. The tremors shook the vault hard enough that ancient dust fell like ash from the ceiling. Cale staggered, steadying himself against the glowing pedestal. The armor hummed faintly, reacting to something outside. Its pulse quickened, echoing through his veins as if warning him. Arya was already at the control terminal, her long fingers gliding across the holographic interface as she tried to seal the door. "It's no use," she muttered. "The vault is responding to the armor's activation. It's opened a beacon signal." "A beacon for who?" Cale demanded. Feeling the gauntlets tighten slightly around his wrists, Arya turned toward him, her expression grim. "For the Wraithborn, the hunters of Isarath's bloodline. They were created to destroy the one who wore that armor, and anything that carried its mark." Cale stared at her. "So they're coming here?" "They were probably already near the system," she said, her tone quick and clipped as she activated the defense field. "That armor's activation is like lighting a flare across half the galaxy." The vault shook again, this time a deeper vibration, rhythmic and heavy, like footsteps in the planet's bones. Cale's gut tightened. "They're not just close. They're landing." Arya's eyes flashed as she turned toward him. "You need to take that off now." "I can't," he said. "It's part of me now. I can feel it. It's connected." She advanced on him, her voice sharp. "Cale, listen to me. That armor was forged for a being who could command energy beyond comprehension. You're human. It will kill you the longer you wear it." He raised a hand instinctively, and the gauntlet flared, sending a ripple of energy across the room. Holograms flickered, glyphs dimmed, and Arya stumbled backward. "See?" he said quietly, his own voice sounding strange to him, deeper somehow. "It's not hurting me." Her gaze softened, but her tone remained cautious. "It's because it hasn't decided how to use you yet." Cale didn't respond. The armor pulsed faintly, warm against his skin. Somewhere deep in the back of his mind, he could still hear the echo of that voice, the same one that had spoken inside him before. It wasn't gone. It was waiting. A thunderous boom shattered their conversation. The main vault door shuddered under impact, molten cracks glowing along its seams. Arya's expression hardened. "They've breached the outer wall." Kyle clenched his fists, feeling power coil under his skin like compressed lightning. "Then we fight." "Fight?" she snapped. "You don't understand what you're up against. The Wraithborn aren't soldiers. They're remnants of an ancient machine army built to devour light itself." The door buckled inward. A flood of red smoke hissed through the cracks. Shapes moved within the mist, tall, skeletal figures with glowing eyes, like dying embers. Their movements were unnaturally smooth, silent except for the faint grind of metal on stone. Cassiel took a step forward, but Arya grabbed his wrist. "Stay behind me. You just said—" "I'm not letting a human die because of my people's mistakes," she said, her voice trembling with both fear and resolve. She extended her hand, and the runes on her wrist ignited. A barrier of light unfolded across the entrance, crackling with energy as the Wraithborn pressed against it. The creatures hissed, recoiling briefly before reforming, their claws raking against the shield. "They're breaking through," she gritted out. "Cale, there's a maintenance shaft behind the pedestal. Go!" But Cale didn't move. His pulse was in sync with the armor now. He could feel its power rising, responding to his instinct, his anger. The runes along his arms flared like molten veins. He heard the voice again, clearer this time. "You were chosen. Do not run from what is yours." His breathing quickened. He could feel the hum of the armor merge with his heartbeat, every cell vibrating. "Kyle, don't—" Arya began, but it was too late. He raised his hand, and the energy surged. The air around him distorted, and for an instant he was both burning and weightless. A shockwave erupted from his body, blasting across the vault. The barrier shattered outward instead of inward, and the Wraithborn were thrown back, colliding with the walls in bursts of crackling static. Arya fell to one knee. shielding her face from the glare. When she looked up again, Kale was standing in the center of the room, surrounded by swirling motes of golden light. The armor had fully awakened, the voice whispered again. "Remember, the flame does not destroy, it purifies." He turned his gaze on the nearest Wraithborn, raising his arm. The gauntlet opened like an unfolding flower, revealing a pulsating core of light. With a thought, the energy blasted outward in a beam so intense that the creature dissolved instantly into ash. Kyle staggered back, horrified and exhilarated all at once. The armor dimmed slightly as if satisfied. "What did I just do?" he whispered. Arya stood slowly, her face pale. "You used the first sigil, Isarath's wrath. That armor channels pure stellar energy." He looked down at his hands, trembling. "It felt natural. That's what frightens me," she said softly. "It shouldn't." The remaining Wraithborn hissed and regrouped. Their bodies began to blur, phasing into shadow. Arya cursed under her breath. "They're shifting into the ether. They'll reform closer to the core. We have to leave now." Kyle tore his eyes away from the fading light. "Where?" She pointed toward the side corridor. "There's an ancient lift that leads to the surface. If we can reach it, maybe the armor's energy signature will fade before they track us again." Kyle hesitated. "And if it doesn't, then we run until it does." They sprinted through the crumbling passageway, the walls alive with flickering glyphs reacting to Kyle's presence. Every time he passed, the symbols lit up in gold, whispering in an ancient tongue. Arya shot him a look. "They're responding to you like you're Elendari," she said. He didn't know what to say. The armor felt heavier with every step, not oppressive but aware, like it was studying him. When they reached the lift shaft, Arya placed her palm against the control rune. The floor trembled and the platform rose, carried by invisible currents. The shaft walls streamed past them, covered in flowing lines of alien script. Kyle leaned against the rail, trying to steady his breathing. "You said this armor belonged to your ancestor, the War Queen. What happened to her?" Arya kept her eyes on the ascending tunnel. "She fell, betrayed by her generals during the last campaign. Some say the armor refused to let her die and sealed her consciousness inside it. That's why no one has dared touch it since." Kyle felt a chill. Then that voice. Arya nodded grimly. The War Queen herself. They emerged into the open air. The Elendari sky stretched above them, crimson clouds swirling under twin suns. But the peace lasted only a second. Above the horizon, dark shapes streaked through the atmosphere. "Wraithborn dropships, dozens of them," Arya's voice broke. "They've already surrounded the mountain." Kyle's grip tightened around the railing. "Then we fight our way through." "You can't fight an army," she snapped. "Maybe not alone," he said, looking down at his glowing hands. "But I don't think I'm alone anymore." Arya opened her mouth to argue, but then the sky cracked with thunder. The Wraithborn ships descended, plasma cannons igniting. The first volley tore through the cliffs, sending rock and fire cascading down toward them. Kyle acted on instinct, raising his arms. The armor blazed to life, forming a shimmering barrier of golden energy that curved like a dome over the lift platform. The plasma bolts struck it and dissolved, their energy feeding back into the armor. He could hear the War Queen's voice again, stronger now. "The flame endures. Let them see what they feared." Kale's pulse raced. The energy built until he could barely contain it. He shouted, not from pain but from sheer force, and the barrier expanded outward in a blinding wave. The nearest Wraithborn ship was caught mid-flight, its hull crumpling as the blast ripped it apart. When the light faded, Arya stood beside him, speechless. "Kyle, what are you?" He exhaled shakily. "I don't know." The armor dimmed again, leaving faint trails of gold across his skin. He swayed, dizzy, but Arya caught him before he fell. "You can't keep doing that," she said firmly. "It's too much. You'll burn yourself out." He looked at her, half smiling despite the exhaustion. "Guess that makes us even. You saved me once. Now I return the favor." Before she could respond, her communicator flared to life with static. A male voice shouted through it, panicked, desperate. "Arya! This is Commander Thalen. The Wraithborn fleet is converging on your coordinates. You have to evacuate now." Arya grabbed the device. The vault's been breached. The armor has... She glanced at Kyle, hesitating. It's bonded. There was silence on the line, then Thylan's voice dropped to a whisper. You mean the prophecy? Another explosion cut him off. The sky lit up again, brighter this time. Arya's expression hardened. Kyle, we have to move. There's a transport station 2 kilometers east. If we can reach it before they re-engage. But Kyle wasn't listening. He was staring upward. The air itself had changed color, streaked with violet light. Something massive was descending from orbit, larger than the Wraithborn ships. What is that? He asked. Arya followed his gaze and froze. That's not Wraithborn tech. Her voice trembled. That's Elendari. Kale frowned. Your people? She nodded slowly, horror dawning in her eyes. Knows my counsel. They've come to reclaim the armor. Kale looked down at the golden glow, pulsing under his skin. Then we've got 2 enemies now. Arya's hand found his arm, gripping it tightly. No, Kel, you don't understand. If the council gets here first, they won't try to take it from you. Then what will they do? Her eyes met his, filled with dread. They'll destroy you, and bury this planet with you. The wind howled as the sky filled with warring light. The War Queen's voice whispered again, low and cold in Kale's mind. And so it begins. The war they could not finish. Kale looked up, jaw set, as the first beam of light from the Elendari fleet cut through the clouds. Then I guess, he said, gripping his gauntleted hand until it sparked. It's time someone did. The first strike from the Elendari fleet lit up the sky like a newborn sun. For a moment, the mountain's peak was nothing but light and shadow. Then the shockwave hit, flattening everything in its path. Kale and Arya were thrown to the ground, dust and rock cascading around them. The armor absorbed most of the impact, but even then, Kale's bones vibrated as if the earth itself was roaring through him. When the world stopped shaking, he pushed himself up. The horizon was gone, just smoke, fire, and shards of molten metal raining down. He could see the silhouette of the Elendari warships high above the clouds. Massive crescent-shaped leviathans, gleaming like blades against the sun. Arya rose unsteadily beside him, clutching a long gash on her shoulder. They've started orbital cleansing, she rasped. They're not here to recover anything. They mean to erase all traces of the armor, of you. Kyle turned to her, eyes glowing faintly beneath his helmet. They can try. You don't understand, she said, her voice sharp with panic. Those ships are equipped with solar lances. They can burn an entire continent to glass. That armor, your armor, might protect you, but the rest of this world will die. Kale's jaw clenched. The armor pulsed against his skin, reacting to his rising anger. Then I'll stop them. Arya stepped forward, her expression fierce. No, Kale, you'll die trying. My people don't fight fair. They'll unleash everything the moment they confirm your location. Then maybe it's time they learned humans don't back down, he said. Before she could argue, the air cracked with thunder. A Wraithborn vessel, black and skeletal, burst from the clouds below, rising toward them like a nightmare given form. Its hull was alive with shifting patterns, its engines emitting a low, bone-deep hum. Arya's eyes widened. They're converging on the same target, the armor. The Elendari and the Wraithborn are about to collide. Kyle watched as the two forces met in the sky. The heavens ignited in a symphony of fire and plasma. Warships collided like titans, tearing each other apart with beams of raw light. The shockwaves shook the mountain again, sending fractures racing down its sides. This isn't a battle, Arya whispered. It's annihilation. Kyle stared at the chaos, the reflection of flames dancing across his armor. Then it's my fault. Arya grabbed his arm. No, Kale, listen to me. The armor didn't choose you by accident. You're connected to it somehow, maybe through resonance, maybe through something deeper. But if you keep using it like a weapon, you'll destroy yourself. He looked at her, then at the horizon, where another ship exploded in a violent bloom of light. You keep saying that, but maybe that's what this thing was made for. She shook her head. No, Isarath didn't build it to kill. She built it to preserve. The power it holds is meant to balance, not burn. Kale frowned. Then why does it feel like it's begging for war? Before Arya could answer, the ground beneath them split open. The air turned electric, the same deep vibration Kale had felt in the vault. The armor's pulse quickened. Something was rising from below. Arya gasped. No, not here, not now. A massive structure emerged from the earth, a circular platform of ancient metal etched with glowing runes that matched the ones on Kyle's armor. The very mountain was shifting to reveal it. As the debris fell away, Kyle could see what it was, a weapon or maybe something worse. The ring hovered above the crater, spinning slowly, its center alive with swirling golden light. Kale could feel it calling to him, resonating in perfect harmony with the energy in his veins. What is that? He breathed. The heart of Isarath, Arya said. Her voice trembled with awe and fear. It was sealed away with the armor. They were never meant to be apart. It's a power source and a key. To what? To awakening what sleeps beneath this planet. The ground shook again, harder this time. Kale could see cracks spreading across the landscape. Lava, or something like it, began to leak through the fissures. The whole world seemed to pulse in time with the armor's rhythm. Arya grabbed his wrist. We have to leave. If the heart completes the resonance, it'll awaken the planetary core. The Elendari called it Arindra's soul, a living weapon forged to end wars. It can tear space apart. Kyle looked down at the glowing ring. And it's reacting to me. Yes, she said desperately. The armor's awakening sequence triggered the heart. It thinks you're its commander. Then maybe I can stop it, he said, breaking free of her grip. Kyle, wait. But he was already moving, drawn toward the hovering structure. The closer he got, the stronger the pull became, until he could barely distinguish his heartbeat from the pulse of the planet. Energy lashed around him like whips of light. The armor drank it in, glowing brighter with every step. He reached the platform's edge. The air was weightless, shimmering, thick with invisible power. For an instant, everything stopped, every sound, every vibration. Then the voice came again. The flame returns to its source. The air stands before the throne. Kyle's vision blurred. He saw flashes, memories that weren't his. An Elendari queen standing atop a battlefield of dying stars. A crown of fire, armies kneeling in devotion. And then betrayal. Blades of light piercing her back. Her scream echoed through time itself. He stumbled, clutching his head. Arya called his name, but her voice was distant. The images faded, leaving behind a single truth that chilled him to the core. I know who she was, he whispered. Arya's voice trembled. Who? Kyle lifted his gaze to the sky, eyes glowing like molten gold. The War Queen Isarath. She didn't die in battle. She became the armor. Her spirit lives in it. Before Arya could respond, another explosion rocked the air. One of the Elendari warships was descending, its engines failing, flames trailing behind it as it plunged toward the mountain. Kale could see its massive shadow falling across the heart of Isarath. Move! He shouted. He grabbed Arya and dove aside just as the ship crashed into the crater's edge, sending a wall of fire roaring over them. The shockwave hurled them into the dust, the heat searing Kale's exposed skin, even through the armor's protective field. When the flames died down, the warship's wreckage burned quietly nearby. Arya coughed, struggling to stand. Kale, the heart, it's destabilizing. Kyle turned toward the platform. The ring was spinning faster now, the light within it expanding outward, distorting space itself. The sky above them fractured like glass, revealing glimpses of something vast and terrible beyond. He could feel it, the presence stirring below. Something ancient, older than both their species. Something that remembered war and silence and the taste of stars. Arya looked up at him, eyes wide with fear. If that breaches the veil, it'll consume the system. You have to break the link. How? Sever the armor's connection to the heart. He stared at her, realization dawning. You mean destroy it? Yes, he shook his head. If I do that, I die with it. Arya's voice cracked. If you don't, everyone dies with you. The air screamed as another tremor split the ground. Kale took a deep breath, feeling the armor's pulse sink completely with his heartbeat. He could sense its will now, the Queen's will. She didn't want destruction. She wanted vengeance. and it was driving her through him. He whispered, "You're not me," but the voice answered anyway, soft and calm. "You are my air, my flame. My second chance." Kyle clenched his fists. "No, I make my own choices." Arya stepped closer. "Kale, whatever you're going to do it now." The world around them began to warp. The heart's energy flared, sending ripples of gold across the sky. The Elendari fleet and Wraithborn forces both fell silent, watching from orbit as the planet itself began to glow. Kyle raised his arms. The armor responded instantly, channels of light opening across its surface. For a moment, he could see everything. The ships above, the soldiers below, even Arya's face framed by the flickering firelight. She was terrified, but there was trust in her eyes too. He smiled faintly. "Tell them this wasn't war. It was a warning." Then he leapt into the light. The instant he touched the heart's surface, the world exploded into brilliance. Every sound vanished. Every atom stretched into infinity. Kale's body dissolved into pure energy, but his mind remained. He felt her presence again, the War Queen, standing beside him in the void. "You would defy me?" she asked. "I would finish what you started," he said. "But not with rage, with peace." The Queen regarded him in silence, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps that is why you were chosen." She raised her hand, and the light engulfed them both. On the surface, Arya watched as the heart's glow turned blinding white, then collapsed inward, imploding silently. The shock wave that followed swept across the planet, erasing the flames, silencing the war. When the light faded, the mountain was gone, replaced by a vast crater. At its center lay only fragments of blackened glass where the armor had stood. Arya fell to her knees, tears streaking through the dust. "Kale." But the voice answered anyway, soft and calm. "You are my air, my flame. My second chance." Kale clenched his fists. "No, I make my own choices." Arya stepped closer. "Kyle, whatever you're going to do it now." The world around them began to warp. The heart's energy flared, sending ripples of gold across the sky. The Elendari fleet and Wraithborn forces both fell silent, watching from orbit as the planet itself began to glow. Kyle raised his arms. The armor responded instantly, channels of light opening across its surface. For a moment, he could see everything. The ships above, the soldiers below, even Arya's face framed by the flickering firelight. She was terrified, but there was trust in her eyes too. He smiled faintly. "Tell them this wasn't war. It was a warning." Then he leapt into the light. The instant he touched the heart's surface, the world exploded into brilliance. Every sound vanished. Every atom stretched into infinity. Gale's body dissolved into pure energy, but his mind remained. He felt her presence again, the War Queen standing beside him in the void. "You would defy me?" she asked. "I would finish what you started," he said, "but not with rage. With peace." The Queen regarded him in silence, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps that is why you were chosen." She raised her hand, and the light engulfed them both. On the surface, Arya watched as the heart's glow turned blinding white, then collapsed inward, imploding silently. The shockwave that followed swept across the planet, erasing the flames, silencing the war. When the light faded, the mountain was gone, replaced by a vast crater. At its center lay only fragments of blackened glass where the armor had stood. Arya fell to her knees, tears streaking through the dust. "Kyle!" But as the wind settled, she heard something faint, a whisper soft as a breath. "Arya." She looked up sharply. The air shimmered. There, standing at the edge of the crater, was a figure, human, glowing faintly gold, the outline of armor fading slowly from his skin. His eyes were no longer human or Elendari, but something in between, alive, ancient, peaceful. "Kyle," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "It's quiet now." Before she could reach him, his form began to dissolve, scattering into motes of light that drifted upward, merging with the stars. She reached for him, voice trembling. "What happens now?" His voice echoed softly in her mind. "Now the flame sleeps, until the next world needs it. And then he was gone, leaving only silence and a single golden ember glowing faintly in her hand. Arya closed her fingers around it, tears glinting in the firelight. Above her, the sky healed itself, the stars burning brighter than before. The war was over. But something far greater had just awakened, and it remembered his name. The stars above the Elendari world were different now. They burned with a faint golden hue, as if touched by the echo of what had happened. Every telescope, every sensor in the outer colonies recorded the same anomaly, an energy pattern spreading outward from the ruined planet, rippling across systems like waves in an unseen ocean. Some called it radiation. Others called it a miracle. Arya stood at the edge of the crater where it had all ended. The wind howled through the remains of the mountain, carrying with it the faint scent of ozone and scorched metal. The Elendari fleet had long since withdrawn, and the Wraithborn had vanished into whatever shadowed dimension they came from. Only silence remained now, heavy, immense, almost sacred. The crater's center still glowed faintly, where the heart of Isarath had once been. Streams of molten glass traced fractal patterns along the ground, hardening into crystal veins that pulsed faintly under the starlight. It looked alive. She'd been here for days, searching for any sign that he was still somewhere, anything that proved Kale hadn't vanished completely. But every scan, every trace came back the same, empty. She crouched and pressed her hand against one of the glass veins. It was warm. Beneath the smooth surface, energy flowed in gentle rhythm, steady, calm. She could almost convince herself it was breathing. "Are you still there?" she whispered. "Or did you become the light?" The question hung unanswered in the air. Footsteps approached from behind. Arya didn't need to turn to know who it was. Commander Thalen had survived the orbital assault, his ship crash-landing on the other side of the range. He had been hunting for her ever since. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. "The council ordered this site quarantined." She rose slowly, dust and ash falling from her robes. "The council can order what it likes." This is where he fell. "I won't leave it," Thalen exhaled, stepping closer. His uniform was scorched, his left arm bound in a makeshift sling, but his posture was still all soldier. "We all saw it, Arya." The light swallowed the entire fleet. Every sensor went blind for a full minute. And then, peace. No signatures, no Wraithborn, no armor. Whatever he did, he ended everything. Her voice cracked. He ended himself. Thalen's gaze softened. "He saved more lives than any general in our history. Even the council can't deny that." She turned toward him, anger flashing briefly in her eyes. "They already are. They're calling it an uncontrolled anomaly, claiming the human triggered an unstable reaction that wiped out both forces." He hesitated. "That's easier for them to accept than the truth." Arya looked back toward the crater. "They fear what they can't control. And they can't control him, not anymore." For a while they stood in silence, the only sound the whispering wind and the faint hum from the glass veins. Then Thalen said quietly, "You found something, didn't you?" She opened her palm. Resting in her hand was the golden ember, the same one that had appeared after the explosion. It pulsed faintly, as if responding to her heartbeat. "He left this behind," she said. "It's part of the armor, or maybe part of him." Thalen frowned. "You should destroy it. If the council finds out you have that—" "I won't," she interrupted sharply. "If I destroy it, everything he sacrificed disappears with it." He studied her face, then sighed. "You sound like him," she smiled faintly, the kind of smile born of exhaustion and loss. He was contagious like that. The wind shifted. The golden light from the crater flared briefly, catching both of their attention. The hum deepened, more rhythmic now, like the slow beating of a heart. Thalen's hand went to his weapon instinctively. "What was that?" Arya didn't answer. She took a step forward, eyes fixed on the crater. "It's him," she whispered. "He's still here." Arya. She was already moving, descending the rocky slope with fluid grace. The ground beneath her boots glowed faintly wherever she stepped, reacting to her presence. Thalen cursed under his breath and followed. his weapon drawn, though he knew it would make no difference if something truly cosmic decided to wake. As they reached the center, the golden veins converged beneath their feet. The light grew brighter, swirling outward in intricate spirals. The air thickened, vibrating with energy. Thalen raised a hand to shield his eyes. "What's happening?" Arya's voice trembled. "He's answering." A column of light erupted from the ground, shooting straight into the sky. For a moment it was blinding, and then it softened, coalescing into a familiar form. Kyle, or what remained of him. He was made of light now, his outline flickering between human and something more. His features were still his, the same earnest eyes, the same determined set of his jaw, but his body shimmered like a reflection on water. Arya's breath caught. "Kyle?" He smiled faintly, his voice echoing like a memory and a presence all at once. "You kept your promise. You came back." She took a hesitant step forward. "I thought you were gone." "I almost was," he said. "But the armor, the Queen's essence, it wouldn't let me fade. I became part of the heart's energy, part of the balance." Thalen stared wide-eyed. "You're alive." Kale turned toward him. Alive enough. The ground beneath them pulsed softly, in rhythm with his words. "The heart is stable now. The Wraithborn can't return. The Queen sleeps. But something else woke when the energy released." Arya frowned. "What do you mean?" Kyle's gaze lifted toward the sky. "When the heart resonated, it didn't stop at this world. The signal reached beyond. There are others out there, worlds connected to the same network, waiting, dormant. The Queen's war wasn't over. It was paused." Thalen muttered. "You're saying there are more of these weapons?" Kyle nodded slowly. "More hearts, more armor, all sleeping. Until now." A chill ran through Arya. "And your awakening woke them," Kyle finished. "Not all, but enough to stir the old systems. The architects who created the Wraithborn will come looking for what they lost. And they won't stop here." Thalen swore under his breath. "Then we need to warn the Council. Mobilize fleets, prepare defenses." "No," Kyle interrupted, his tone calm but firm. "You can't fight them with ships and weapons. They'll only feed on it. You have to remember what stopped them before. Balance, not destruction." Arya stepped closer. "Then how do we find that balance?" Kale looked at her, his expression both warm and distant. "You already have. You carry the ember. That's the seed of the new flame. When the time comes, it will guide you." She looked down at the glowing fragment in her hand. "You mean this?" "Yes, it's part of the armor's consciousness, part of me. As long as it burns, the balance holds." The light around him flickered slightly. His voice softened. "But my time here is short. The more I stay, the more unstable the heart becomes." Her eyes filled with tears. "I can't just let you vanish again." Kyle smiled gently. "You won't lose me. Not really. Wherever the flame exists, I'll be there. In the stars, in the machines, in the quiet between heartbeats." She reached out, her fingers passing through the light. "Kyle." He met her gaze, his own glowing brighter. "Promise me you'll protect it. Don't let the Council twist it. Don't let them fear what they can't understand." "I promise," she whispered. The light surrounding him began to fade, scattering like dust on the wind. His voice was softer now, barely audible. "Then this is enough. Thank you for believing I could be more than a mistake." Her throat tightened. "You were never a mistake." The last trace of his form dissolved into golden embers that drifted upward, joining the stars. The crater went silent again, except for the faint hum beneath her feet, the pulse of the heart, steady and calm. Thalen stood beside her for a long time, saying nothing. Finally he spoke, voice low. "What now?" Arya closed her fingers around the ember, feeling its warmth against her palm. "Now," she said quietly, "we prepare. The flame isn't done burning." Months passed. The Council declared the planet uninhabitable and withdrew all fleets. But Arya stayed. She built a small outpost near the crater, studying the resonance patterns left behind. Some nights she swore she could still hear his voice when the wind passed over the mountains. And one evening, while monitoring the ember, the readings spiked. The holographic map flickered to life. revealing dozens of signals, tiny flares across distant systems, each one pulsing with the same golden signature. She leaned closer, heart pounding. "Kyle, you were right." The ember pulsed once, as if answering her. Far across the stars, unseen by any council or fleet, the first of the other hearts stirred. On forgotten worlds, ancient machines awoke, sensing the return of their lost kin. And in the space between galaxies, a whisper carried through the void, a voice neither wholly human nor Elendari, but something in between. The flame endures. The balance will hold. Arya looked up at the stars, their golden light reflecting in her eyes. "Then we'll be ready." And as the ember's glow deepened, its pulse matching her heartbeat, the sky shimmered, alive again, alive forever, with the legacy of the human who had once dared to wear a queen's armor and change the fate of worlds.